When you watch as much anime as me, you become cynical and jaded, and hearing the words harem and anime in a sentence together usually evokes an emotion of indifference and lots of sighing and extreme apathy. Some of you may remember that I did review the manga for Quintessential Quintuplets when it was initially released, and I had fair things to say about it. Mostly that it was indeed a competent story and that the art was good, but overall I wouldn't be revisiting the manga. Well, thanks to Satsuki the Savage, things have changed, and my god, that man can get me to read anything. And so I did just that. I read through the Quintessential Quintuplets from beginning to end, and I'm here to say, and this is a serious video, no jokes, the Quintessential Quintuplets is a legit series that's actually really good. So, with that being said, let's talk about the Quintessential Quintuplets and why I believe this series is actually good. There will be spoilers for the series, though honestly, they won't matter much, so just let's get right into it. I think we have to address the humongous, off-putting elephant in the room. Yes, this is indeed a harem anime, but I stress to you to keep an open mind about this, because with this series, it almost requires you to be open-minded as it subverts your expectations of what harem series are. While yes, the series has strong harem elements, the enjoyable elements of the show are essentially that it is a harem. How can this even be? Well, it's thanks to the fantastic writing in the series. The Quintessential Quintuplets, which I will now be referring to as QQ, is what I would best describe as a wholesome harem. And I know that's not the most original description of this series, there have been others that have said it, more popular people, but it's easily the most accurate. But I think for me, the problems I had when I first looked at this series was that it would be yet another watered down harem series that had nothing going on with it, despite it being a wholesome harem. You see, I had these misconceptions about how the story would be terrible, the MC would be terrible and unlikable, the characters would be terrible and unlikable, the girls are, they'd be astoundingly one-dimensional and unlikable. Basically, I was worried this series would become another vehicle to gawk at anime girls. And hearing the descriptor of wholesome harem simply made me think it was just like all of those watered-down slice-of-life anime people still seem to watch. But that is just simply not what this series is. QQ is in reality full of really solid storytelling, really solid writing, and the characters are extremely likable, which is the most important part in the package that is QQ. I've never quite experienced a series like this because the girls in this series aren't simply eye candy or one-dimensional. While yes, they are attractive, it's still a manga and an anime. Don't let that fool you in the least. Each one of them are likable in some way, and there are even characters in this series that do morally wrong things which are then addressed and acknowledged. One such character is Nino, who is able to drug Fuutaro, our main character, on 2 separate occasions. Nino is actually one of the best characters in the series too, and is the most chaotic of the sisters by far. Her story and why she does what she does is compelling as well. Nino is this girl who would do anything and everything for her sisters, but because of that, she's also extremely overprotective of her family as well. So when Fuutaro, our main character, enters the fold and starts to tutor them, she immediately rejects the prospect of Fuutaro getting any closer to them than he has to. Nino's ugly personality traits lead to many conflicts, even between her own sisters. This is evident with Nino and Miku facing off in a cooking contest. After Miku loses, Nino pretty much for the rest of the series is always making fun of Miku's abilities to cook. This is simple, but their conflict use in the story is actually something really detrimental to Nino's overall character development, along with her actions with Fuutaro, and as well, Miku. Nino, to put it simply, is a bitch, and her development through this series is about her accepting others and their honest intentions, especially that of Fuutaro, who, let's be real, she probably shouldn't have drugged 2 times, which is not something that's forgotten either. Every bad deed Nino does in QQ is often remembered, and her comeuppance, while often simple shutdowns, are simply satisfying to see, as Nino is absolutely an awful person who crosses the line often, and when she does, it's rather scary to be honest. But all of this talk about Miku has got me wanting to talk about Miku, who I find to be a nuanced and subtle character that is a nice breath of fresh air, just in general. Miku initially is introduced as this shy and meek girl who doesn't speak up when she wants something and lets people run all over her. But don't let that description of her fool you. Miku is in practice much different than she is on paper. Miku essentially goes from this shy, meek girl and develops into this confident girl who will speak out and try her best to strive. One of my favorite aspects about Miku is how she develops this go-getter attitude. After losing to Nino in a cooking contest, we see an ever so subtle shift, a change in Miku. She starts to try and hone her craft of cooking to get better and better until hey, she's now trying to go to a culinary school, which is now her calling in life as she loves cooking. It's such a small thing for Miku, but as an example, it shows perfectly how she develops. In many ways, Miku represents what QQ is all about, and that's character development. Another thing I like about Miku is her resolve when it comes to Fuutaro and asking him out. Miku is dead set on finding the perfect moment to do so, and I love that, because how often do these characters whine and complain and just never do it? Miku is basically like, nah, fuck that, and tries her best when it comes to Fuutaro. Then we have Ichika, who is my least favorite out of all the characters in the series, and that's for many reasons, but don't be fooled, she's still good. She's the oldest of the Quints, but don't let her age fool you. She's, well, not as well put together as her other sisters. She lives in a room full of trash, she has a pervy personality, often teasing Fuutaro with some corny dialogue. But there are cool things about Ichika, like how she wants to become an actor and her struggles to stay at school and complete her schooling or leave and become an actress. I like this topic because it explores the idea of pursuing your dreams or passing up that chance to have a solid foundation by completing school. Ichika may not be my favorite character, but her story and her arc is rather well done. I'll give it that. But moving on, let's talk about Itsuki, who is the resident meat eater of this series. Nino at one point calls her the meat bun monster. It's a great scene, and she's almost always constantly eating. And really, she's most similar to Nino in many ways. She's distrustful of Fuutaro initially, but not nearly as much as Nino is. Itsuki is probably the most light on character development in this series, which I find to be rather interesting. Because of this, she often just gets lost in the mix, and it's just for the simple reason that every other character has something going on, while Itsuki doesn't more often than not. While she does get her moments, it's often not as satisfying or as compelling as pretty much every other character besides Ichika, which is sad. She has her stars in her hair. That's a highlight, I guess. Then we have Yotsuba, who is amazing. She's the dumbest out of the Quints, and that's not an exaggeration. But while she may be dumb, this trait is turned into one of her best and most likable qualities. Yotsuba is a supercharged, energetic, and lovable bunny rabbit person dog who often steals the scene she's in with her energy alone. While she may be dumb in the truest sense of the word, and I do mean that, Yotsuba makes up for it in every way imaginable. From her unmatched athletic abilities to her ceaseless positive personality, Yotsuba is awesome. But she's also one of the most caring characters in this show. She has a soft side to her that you can't help but want to love. Yotsuba will often sacrifice her own happiness for that of her sisters and others. It's a trait that maybe isn't the best to have, but once you figure out why she does have that trait, you'll understand just why Yotsuba is so awesome. Finally, we have Fuutaro Uesugi, our main character, and absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, the best character in QQ. Fuutaro defies all expectations of harem anime and is a person that you actually want to be like rather than hate like most harem MCs. He's a hardworking guy who is tutoring these Quints to provide for his sister and father. His mother passed away. He's a model straight A student, and as well, he has insane and just an endless amount of patience for these Quints. Fuutaro is awesome, and he is the glue which keeps this series together and why I love it so much. His relationship with his sister is also awesome as well. I mean, really, his sister is just plain awesome. Reiha is introduces a character to any other harem, you'd have this weird incest undertone thing. You know what I'm talking about. You know the anime that do this kind of thing, but QQ doesn't do it. Instead, they do something novel, and that's make Raiha one of the most likable characters in the series. The best part about Raiha is every other character fights the urge to spoil Raiha because she's just that great. And that's just a subtle thing about her. This isn't the defining trait for Raiha. It's more of a recurring joke. Raiha herself is very understanding for her age, and will fake being well when she's obviously not, when she has this cold, just so that Fuutaro will be able to go on a field trip and not worry about her. Characters in QQ are detrimental to the overall experience because QQ is a subversion of the harem genre in of itself. It chooses to embrace only the absolute most necessary elements of what makes a harem anime, and then simply chooses to ignore those troublesome issues that have made harem anime so unlikable and bad in the past. While QQ is not a masterpiece in its own right, it's likely the best harem anime ever made, if we're to be frank here. And that's because the series is done right by the viewer or the reader, depending on how you're consuming this story. It never puts something in front of you that insults your intelligence, and it never tries to make you look like a fool for enjoying something like this. The characters all have their own arcs and are written really well, and most importantly, they are likable. I feel the series author was self-aware of what he was creating, but as well aware of the criticism that series like this do get. We can see this so clearly when you get people like me who hate harem anime, or I guess manga, this and series like this, and absolutely just loving this for every moment it has. Take, for example, the romance in QQ. They never shove it down your throat. For me personally even, I don't care at all who Fuutaro picks in the end. I'm simply here to enjoy the characters and their interactions. And that's not because I find the harem elements gross or stupid. It's actually because I think each of these girls are so well developed and the story is so well done that I think QQ has earned the right to have this kind of ending where Fuutaro picks one and they ride off into the sunset. That's amazing to me because a great majority of harem anime feels so obvious and played out, and they don't earn anything from the viewer. Like any other series, the winner is obvious from the first episode, and from there it's just padding shit out with fan service and mind-numbing character interactions. But QQ is the exact opposite. There's almost non-existent fan service, and it's way more about developing characters than it is ever about who is going to be the winner. QQ is a wholesome harem in the most genuine sense of the term. I said it before, I'll say it again. I am an avid hater of harem series, and for me to like this series and to be able to point out what's so good about it is a sign of its quality and how genuine the story is. The Quintessential Quintuplets is good because it goes out of its way to simply be what other harem anime and series, I guess in general, are not. And that's by getting rid of unbearable characters, cringy situations, fan service garbage, and by having easily the best story of any harem anime I've ever seen. I 1000% recommend the Quintessential Quintuplets. May God help my soul. But before you go, I have a Patreon where I posted my original Quintessential Quintuplets review completely for free, so just click the first link in the description and it'll link you to it directly. But as well, I post free content to my Patreon all the time, and the best way to keep up with that is to follow me on Patreon. It doesn't require you to pay anything, but following me there will ping you every time I upload free content. Currently right now, you can watch all of Anime Friday Season 1 free, as well free podcasts and much more content. And I want to ask you guys is just, well, if you want to see me cover more Quintessential Quintuplets in the future, do you guys want to see me cover the ending, the rest of it? If you want to, make sure to give this video a like, subscribe, ring the bell. Once again, I have a Patreon, and thank you guys for watching the video. I'll see you guys later. Bye-bye.